Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this transit board meeting, September 25. It's 9:30. We're going to get underway with this. And Jackie, since you were here last time, I'm going to have you lead us in.
Okay.
The pledge, if you would.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do we have any guests to introduce today? Ken, numerous presenters or anything?
No, sir.
Okay. Then I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Johnson and a second by Ms. Henderson to approve this agenda. Any discussion? Yes, Lance.
Mr. Chair, under both agendas, the consent and the regular agenda, I have a couple of areas to segregate. Under the approval of the consent agenda,
Yeah, could you hold that for just 1 second? We're talking about just the agenda, and I will give the board a chance to comment and approve the consent agenda as a separate item.
okay.
Okay. So do you have any other adjustments to the agenda as presented as the motion stands?
You're asking me? How do I respond to that? I mean, I have a couple of segregations under the consent agenda. The regular meeting of August 28th.
Yeah,
You want
let's-
to take them one at a time?
We'll call for the question on the agenda, the meeting agenda, and then I will ask for approval of the consent agenda, and at that time you can speak to the consent agenda issues.
Okay.
Fair enough? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Now we're going to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, this is the time that you can speak to it if you want to make a motion to make some adjustments. So just on the consent agenda, we have minutes to the previous meetings. We have a regular meeting of August 28th and a special meeting minutes of September 1. And then the August 15 pre-audit master voucher list. So you can speak to any one of those items under the consent agenda.
Okay, on all three I have questions. Starting with the regular meeting, August 28th,
All right?
page 5 of 5, number 8. Everybody there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 8, I'm just curious about the potential litigation. What is that about?
Matt?
Yeah.
I don't typically, my experience has been that you don't discuss topics of executive session when it involves potential
You don't,
litigation. You
yeah.
just cite the RCW.
That's what we did, yeah.
Okay, so that's a secret right now, right?
It's not a secret, it's
It's a
potential
prison.
litigation.
And it's protected under the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay. Then let's go to special meetings, the workshop, September 1st, page 1 of 2. Okay, both of those business items refer to the RFP for the outside collective bargaining services, so I have 3 questions. First is, has the RFP closed as far as time for applicants to apply?
And that
Yes.
answer is yes.
Yes,
Okay, question number 2, has the selection process concluded?
yeah, not the selection process, no.
So that's still ongoing?
Yes, yes.
I'm sorry,
This is the,
Matt?
well, you get to ask the question, but we're not, I don't see where you're going, yeah.
Well, I mean, if I can raise a point of order, information around bargaining and decisions around bargaining are right of each organization. So to use your position on this board to discuss bargaining strategy is inappropriate, and I believe in unfair labor practice. And so I would caution my fellow board member that these types of questions are part of strategy, and the reason that strategy is protected by executive session is it is just that. So the types of questions that are being asked are, they're inappropriate questions.
Let me ask counsel, is she correct?
Well, you can ask factual questions.
Yes.
So I can ask these questions.
Well, to a point, might be a point where we'll say that it's not appropriate, so,
Well, the second question was simply, has the selection process concluded?
no.
It hasn't. Therefore, my third question, I need not ask. That's all.
Fair enough.
I would like, to inform my board member, Jill, you have no idea what unfair labor practices are.
Okay.
But-
This is inappropriate.
Okay.
I know, I just couldn't resist, I'm sorry.
Okay, we're.
And the last under the consent is, and I guess I'll ask Paul this, the master voucher list on page 3 of 4. If you go down about 3/4 of the way down, are you there, Paul? Okay. Number 000337722, Summit Law Group, Professional Services. Curious about what that entitled?
I believe that was a fee for asking for consulting services for current employee labor question that we had for Summit. So it has nothing to do with union negotiations or anything like that. It's just how we were supposed to or it was a question about handling a current employee issue.
I see, and the firm of Hendricks Bennett couldn't answer that question, so.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I wasn't involved in the question, but I think that they went and asked who they felt would be the best person to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move along. Member, next, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay, Ms. Henderson made a motion to accept the consent agenda. Ms. Johnson seconded. Any further discussion on that item? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. We're going to move on with our monthly reports. The interim executive director, do you have a report for us today on any topic?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman. First of all, the shop floor progress. The contractor has completed, to our satisfaction, the filling of all saw cuts in the entire facility, and several other major cracks that fell into to our criteria of needing to be filled. That process is completed. They are now in the process of grinding the floor, which involves several areas. One is to grind down high spots, several high spots in the floor where there is either settling or the pour was not absolutely flat, where seams meet and provide a smoother flat finish between slabs. That grinding, that phase of grinding has been completed. Next week they will be grinding the bubbled areas of the floor and then also grinding the restrooms in preparation for the new floor application in the restrooms. So that's where we stand currently on the floor.
Now, you said something that's new to me, and that is they're settling on that slab. I did not see any.
Well, I don't know that
Architect
it's-
hasn't addressed anything about settling. We had
Right.
some ridges, some high spots where the joints.
And I don't know that it was settling. I mean, there are high spots. Yes.
For the public's information and for anybody else involved in this, is the architect who is the designer and the architect of record on this building has been and continues to be involved in the corrections on the slab. The staff is not going out there just deciding what they want to do.
Right.
This project will get signed off by the architect when we have finished this corrected work. Anything else?
Yes, just an informational item that Brian Warner from the state has requested some information for his use regarding the fair study, and we're working with him for him to prepare information relative to the fair study. And then finally, I am working on a regular basis, it's become a regular basis with Skagit and Whatcom counties in terms of discussions on the connector and future planning, future scheduling, future funding, and preparing for what might be eventually crafted for legislative action at the state level. We're looking at the regional approach to trying to package the connector service rather than the patchwork that's currently involved in the legislature. So, you know, we're all very pleased with how we're working with each other to come up with a plan for the next session where we can present a more, I think, a more cohesive alliance, as well as a much more solid case for the connector continuation long term. Also, I have touched base with Community Transit, and within the next couple of weeks, we don't have an exact date yet, but the next couple of weeks I will be meeting with Community Transit on overlapping services in Snohomish County, as well as possible improved service or ways that we can improve service for Camino through working cooperatively with Community Transit. So I'm very pleased with the response we got from them, and they are going to be improving services in the Stanwood Warm Beach area with a portion of the money they hope to get from the increased sales tax effort. And with that, they may have some planning flexibility to incorporate some of our interests. So, so I'm working with them, and I'm fairly optimistic we can we can come up with some possible alternatives that way. And that's not to say that any of that's going to replace the Camino to Everett service that's been already acted upon, but it may be something that supplements or in the future could possibly be coordinated with our own efforts, or possibly contracted with Community Transit. Whatever we decide on as we look down the road for the future, but definitely we're looking at good cooperative discussions.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That completes my report. I do want to say that finance report is not listed on the agenda, which Paul would like to present, if that's okay with the board.
I don't have any objection to that.
Probably we should just put that when we're approving the agenda, is when we need to make that.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, it's just not.
Well, technically, it should have been brought up when we approved the agenda. So we will, did anyone make a motion to amend the approved agenda at this particular point?
I move to amend the approved agenda to include financial report.
Following the chair's report, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Sundberg made the motion to amend the agenda to allow the finance director to do a finance report under monthly reports following the chair's report, Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Chair's report is right now. So all I have to say is thank you, Ken, thank you, staff, for working towards the completion with Tiger to get that wrapped up. The goal has been, and their commitment has been to wrap that up by September 30th. And it's my understanding that we have cleared the review with each of the state agencies for allowing Tiger then to release the retention that's in escrow to get the subcontractors paid off. Is there a timeline? Can you describe the process for me? When Tiger is finished, we're satisfied with that. How soon will the subcontractors be paid?
As quickly as possible. I think that technically it probably would come after final sign-off by the board.
You're saying?
Acceptance of the board, of the total
So
project.
it's possible they could be paid off approximately in 30 days, 30 to 40 days?
Yeah.
Okay, I see Kent, Nat, everybody for nodding their head. All right. And a question on that?
So where's this money at? We're holding it somewhere, or I don't,
No, on a public works project, by law, the contractor's required to retain 5%.
so it's with the contractor.
Right.
So we approve it and then he releases the
Right.
money?
Right.
But it's not held in his account, it's held in a escrow account.
There's various ways it can be held, it can be bonded or, yeah.
All right, and that's why we don't see it on our
Correct.
budget?
Right, and the Tiger has bonded, we have a retention bond with Tiger for their retention. They've been paid in cash, but we're holding a bond. And we still have to get release from the bonding companies for everything that they've been involved in. Once that's released, then they can and they should release the money.
Yeah, none of that happens until the full board accepts the project.
That's right.
So we don't have any additional cash outlay at all
No.
related to closing this project out?
And, okay, that's the end of my work.
I should just insert there that we do have a cash obligation for about $30,000 for the final
HVAC
bill
system.
that we have not paid yet.
Yeah.
So that would be still an outstanding bill.
And we have a set aside for that?
Well, we don't have any special reserve for it. It would come out of our operating reserve.
Is it budgeted in our operating reserve right now?
Well, actually, no, actually it wouldn't come out of our operating reserve. We would pay it and then we would seek reimbursement from the FTA for that money.
Correct. And then we have to get also final acceptance from FTA too.
That's right.
So before the money is released, we still have to go to them. Describe what your process is for that.
Well,
I discussed that a little bit with Matt this morning. I don't know how quickly or exactly what their process will be to sign off on the entire project, and that's a priority for me to contact FTA, give them an update of where we are on it, but also to find out when the soonest is we can get their sign off and release.
You know, getting federal departments to sign off on things can often take longer than it took to build the building. I would really like for you to put that on the top of your list to bird dog that thing, or bulldog that thing, whichever way you want to describe it. I'd be happy to hand carry it down if that's what was required, because this is really unnecessary to have this drag on for so long.
Right.
Okay.
And Paul has been in contact with the FTA all along, so they do know what's been occurring with the project and know where we're at as far as the floor situation. So they're not in the dark on the project, it's just a matter of getting their position as far as when they can sign off completely on it.
Okay, well, it'll take a while to sign off if we don't squeak the wheel, so
Right.
I'm really asking you guys to squeak the wheel on that. That's the end of my report, and so I'll turn the finance report over to
Okay, if you want to direct your attention to the screen and put some slides up there just to talk about some of the key financial pieces for the month of August 2015. So this first slide talks about cash and where we are currently. You can see the bar chart at the very end to the right is where we stand, just over $1.8 million. The second slide just gives us an idea of where we stand in time. It starts in 2009, and it just shows again where we are at 1.8, a little over $1.8 million. So our balance is slowly increasing. Right now, we're showing a monthly surplus in 2015 of $120,000 per month, and there are really three major reasons why we have a surplus. It's planned. Partially we've been receiving excess surplus funds from fuel prices that have been lowered, but we were planning to pay our WISTIP delayed insurance costs for about $250,000. So that's actually happening in this month's master voucher list. You'll see that amount that we're paying that comes due in October. And we're also saving money for future capital purchases, which is planned. And the third reason is our desire to build our operating reserve. So this gives a yearly perspective about where we stand. You can see with the little green marks the surplus idea. And year by year you can see that we're in an improved position over 2 years ago when we were sustaining a deficit in each year.
So the green bar is the difference between the blue and the red?
That's right. That shows the surplus amount. Whereas
Is there some significance to the green bar? Oh, when it's below the line, it's negative.
It's a deficit.
Got it.
Does that surplus funds include the capital obligations taken out and the WISTIP payment taken out?
Let's see. It does. It includes the WISTIP payment taken out, and it includes any surplus reserves that we're holding.
But that doesn't represent an unobligated surplus.
It doesn't, I think it does represent. It's right. It's total cash, total surplus. So in terms of obligated and unobligated, I'm thinking of obligated, which might be a reserve for a capital item like a van or a bus, and those numbers include that surplus money that would have been channeled to any one of those reserves.
So do you know how much would just be in operating reserve?
What's on the cash sheet that was handed out, it's about $100,000 less than in the month of August than the total cash figure. We sold some buses and vans and cars, and that money has been designated or separated for future capital purchases. And that shows up on that cash sheet, that the first sheet that's in the financial packet.
Okay, so I question that. Because we had a net from the sale of the buses of $80,000. Okay, but your bus reserve is showing that we've got $43,000 to it.
Well, it's true that we received $80,000, but not just for buses. A number of those were vans and
Support
cars.
vehicles. It was
Okay,
$80,000.
and that was something else I was going to bring up, and what means it was mentioned is support vehicles. What are these support vehicles and what are they used for?
Well, there was one I know was a Prius. So,
How does a Prius support the bus?
well, it supports the operations when we have support staff that would drive to various locations using a vehicle like that. We would call it a support vehicle.
Supervisor's vehicles.
But it's been sold.
And yeah, and it's been sold and put into that category.
I still have one more, I think I'm not asking my question right, or I'm not understanding the answer, either way. On the total cash on 8/31/15, of that amount, how much of that is obligated for grant match? So where we know we've made a commitment to pay for certain things in the future, how much of that 1.8 is really not, I mean, it's available for cash flow, but it's already obligated to a project?
Well, I think, you know, in our 2015 budget, I think we only had one item there that we were talking about as a capital purchase. And I think that match amount was around $40,000.
No, but in the year 2016, we've already accepted grants for a total of 9 buses.
That's true,
Those are going to require a match
right?
of somewhere around $300,000, I believe it was, in that neighborhood. So is that figure in this $1.8 million?
Well, you know, the $1.8 million figure is going to change over time. I mean, we're projecting that that might be up to $2 million by the end of the year. And in our 2016 budget, we're showing both the revenues and expenditures, both operating and capital, and it's figured in that budgetary figure. So I think the answer ultimately is yes, that it's been figured into the total plan. But this 1.8 million, whether we spend part of this toward next year's match, or whether we're spending some additional cash that we gather between now and the end of the year for next year's match, is really, I mean, it's just, to me, it's half a dozen, you know,
Well,
6 or 8.
perhaps I could phrase this better. The money we have now is going to be used for operations in the future. So if we have an obligation to pay a $200,000 grant for capital replacement of budgets, or buses, that should show up over here in bus reserves, because that money is used for spending on buying buses. If part of that $1.8 million is used for van replacement, that money should show up in the numbers for the van reserve.
Well,
Additionally, I know our goal, or as best I can tell, our goal is to end up with 3 months of operating reserve somewhere. We need to have a line item for operating reserve, or operating savings, or however you want to phrase it, but we're showing a number of, we have an ending balance of $1.8 million. And basically, what we're doing is living out of our checkbook day to day. What we need to do is be putting this money aside, it's earmarked, it can't be shown, so that we have a truthful number of what our actual unobligated, I guess maybe that's the word for it, our unobligated amount of money is at the end of the month.
My response to that is that the statement, I think, is really is truthful. That the bottom figure is unobligated cash. And I think the idea that future expenditures that we're projecting through our budget isn't quite encumbered, but I think that's the idea that you're talking about, is that something that we project to spend, but we aren't necessarily obligated to spend it, even though it's in the budget. You could change your mind and you could spend it on something else. So I think that the net figure on that sheet is our unobligated cash. You could even say that the 1.8 is unobligated, because you could change the direction on that. It isn't like grant money.
Well, therein I think lies part of the problem, though, because it's not showing that we have a direction for it. It's if we could change our mind because we want to buy something else, we could do that. That's living out of your checkbook. We need to have a savings for capital replacements, or a reserve. And we also need to have a reserve set aside for operations in a minimum of 3 months.
Well, I think we're trying to do that. We're trying to accumulate enough money to put into an operating reserve at 3 months. What I'm trying to portray here is money that has been set aside, in a sense, from surplus monies that has been designated for that purpose. So
I think the presentation is very clear, but I share some of Rick's concerns, especially about where we're trying to build up to 3 months operating reserve. It's difficult for me to tell in the total cash amount how much of that is really for ongoing operations and how much of that really makes up that 3-month operating reserve that I think we need to understand to feel stable. And I'm somewhat concerned about just putting this number out there like we have $1.8 million when in fact we can spend that down quickly and it's not representative of what our reserve is or reflective of our stabilization plan. So I mean, my suggestion would just be maybe to add a line each, I'm sorry, I'm on the finance committee and I couldn't come this morning, so I have to do this right now, that's my fault. But to just add a line that shows how much is being put into that reserve every month so we can see how we're doing towards our goal of having, you don't have to create a separate bank account. We just need a separate line item to see how much is actually in that 3-month operating reserve.
Because, well, just real quick, because, and if I'm in the public and I'm looking at this statement, I'm thinking that we have $1.8 million to spend. That we have that worth $1.8 million. When in reality, we do not have that to spend. Even though we haven't specifically obligated those funds to something else like you would have to do for a grant, you can only use it for this. We still need to show that this is not money that we can just run around and spend if we want to. We have it set aside for something, just as Jill said, right?
Why don't you say that?
What I'm listening to in this conversation, what's being presented is a cash flow analysis. We're co-mingling a budget analysis for line items with cash flow. The cash flow has obligations to it. On some of these items, we do not have a legal obligation to restrict. We call it a restricted fund. It's unrestricted funds, okay? So cash flow analysis, one thing showing how we're moving forward with our revenues and expenses. This, how we're going to assign it at this point in time. Now, having said that, I agree with them to the point that we should, and this is a policy decision by the board, if we're going to have a sustainability account or a reserve account, whatever we want to call it, then we have to have a line item for that that said this is unrestricted, this is restricted and cannot be used without the majority consent of the board. That's a reserve, that's a statement. But then we know each month that's going in there. It can't be parceled out by the director's decision or your decision or any other needs in there. That is really what our sustainability plan is to build that reserve. And if the policy is for 3 months for our general operation, then we're working toward 3 months. But we still have to make a board decision on that.
Sure. But one thing I was going to add to the discussion is that the 2016 budget has such a line item, I think. We haven't defined it very clearly, but it does have an operational reserve in it, and we're going to get to that. We're going to be looking at those numbers for the first time today.
Right, I just would say that even in the cash flow, if we need 3 months set aside, so about $1.5 million, is that right? 500,000 a month? I mean, I'm looking.
Probably closer to 7.
700, so that full amount, so 700,000 a month times 3. So that's $2.1 million set aside for us to be stable to say we have 3 months reserve. That kind of points to the narrative that I'm concerned about, which is we're saying we have total cash 1.8. We need to have total cash 1.8 and a reserve of 2.1 in order to be fully stable. And so what I don't want to do is have people, or even us as board members, get excited about this and start adding on level of service because we see this revenue, when in fact we still have a 2.1 million, depending on our policy choice, obligation in order to get a 3-month reserve in place.
But I think my suggestion then is in our budget process, we can add another line that would allocate money toward reserve and try and show that separately. The way it's presented at this moment in time, the reserve and I guess the operating reserve and cash are closer to one and the same.
Yeah, right. And that's my concern.
That's your concern, okay?
We got there.
Good, okay, what do you got there? Yeah. Is that the end of your presentation?
No, I think I have a couple more slides.
There.
If you'd like to see. Just some operating stuff. Fuel prices over time, you can see it's taken a little bit of a dip in August, so that's good news for Island Transit. And bus ridership in August seems like traditionally it drops slightly. In 2014 it was down 3%. This year it was down about 4%. So just give a little update about where ridership is. Cost per rides are fairly constant. Still have the same relationships, whereas of course Pair is our most expensive cost per ride service, and showing Vanpool, which is really consistent, is our least cost way to move people.
Can I ask a question there? Sorry, Rick. How can our cost per ride be stable if fuel prices are going down? Why wouldn't the fuel price tie in directly to the cost per ride?
I think there's a relationship there, because cost obviously is one element there in the equation. And our costs, you can see, especially in our fixed and Camino, it jumps around a little bit, and it's relative. I mean, there are two elements there. You have the actual costs change month by month, and the number of riders changes as well.
Okay.
So fuel is one large element, but not the only.
Yeah, the number of riders goes up seasonally and so on, and when you use that as your divisor, then it's going to make it go up and down.
When you have a fixed cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But both are moving targets.
Yeah.
Costs are changing and the number of riders are changing. So that's it. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
I have one comment related to the budget and the purchase of future vehicles. I would really like to have this conversation with the board, not to micromanage your operation here, but to consider the contracting out paratransit that was brought up by WashDOT and the other transit districts here at the last meeting. I think that needs a really fair, hardcore look at that. And also in the purchasing buses, if we're going to continue to provide paratransit service, we may want to be looking at accessibility equipped vans that are smaller. Because I consistently see up and down the island larger buses, you know, I forget what you call that size, that's what, 20 passenger or something like that.
A cutaway.
Yeah. Typically, there's 1 to 2. I never see any more than that. And, you know, that's my sampling, that's my observation. And unless the vans are more expensive than the cutaway, I think we need to look at smaller vehicles in the course of replacing buses in here. And even to the point that if we're going to do paratransit, shift some of those paratransit buses into the fixed fleet and purchase a less expensive vehicle. That's just for discussion in the future. So.
Yeah, I think we need a discussion.
Just a quick question from operations. Are there paratransit buses that are used only for paratransit?
Yeah, so we have smaller buses that we design them when we purchase them, so you can probably pick up, 5 or 6 passengers at a time with maybe 2 wheelchairs. They were our first vehicle that were regular fuel instead of diesel. So they've been a good vehicle for us for that. And so they only have the capacity to pick up, like I said, 5 or 6 people, depending on the make of that vehicle. Then you move to the next size, which is what you see, the cutaways. And so some of the cutaways are used, so I'm doing fixed route, and then I may have an hour and a half in that schedule, and then they use that to go pick someone up instead of bringing one of the smaller vehicles from Coopville. So it's it's definitely a discussion when you look at the whole picture.
And obviously, those of us sitting up here, we're not in the day-to-day operation. It's an education for us. all the time, but it's still, these are things that we should be asking good questions and getting good answers from. Anything else on this topic before we move on to our agenda item? Hearing none, we're going to move on to our regular agenda item number 1, discussion of
I think we're supposed to have a public hearing, is that right?
We're going into the public.
Pro form, oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at.
Excuse me,
front page.
public hearing, yeah, I did jump down there, I'm sorry about that. The public hearing received comments on the transit section, transit development plan for 2015-2020. That's our agenda number 1.
This, if I may, this is just a formality.
Yeah.
We've already had this hearing. And even though the state was happy with our transportation development plan, there was a question about timing of the actual date of adoption, so we're reholding the hearing just in order to, at their suggestion, it wasn't required, but at their suggestion that we rehold the hearing because there was a matter of a couple hours of timing of what public notice all the hearing, right? This makes it all one question asked.
Mr. Chairman, also associated with that was the addition to the original TDP document, the addition of assumptions for each year in the TDP. The assumptions were added after the original TDP was published for the August 28th public hearing. So the assumptions were injected about 3 or 4 days before the August 28th meeting. As a technicality, the state suggested we hold another public hearing with those assumptions included to formalize the process. But it was just a difference in timing is one aspect of it. The other was assumptions were added, which were not in the original document.
So at this time, we should really open it up to public comment.
Yes.
On the entire plan or just on the assumptions? What's the scope of the comment? Are we,
It was just the assumption.
We have a section for each year of assumptions that were used for each of those years.
I'm just asking if the scope of the public hearing is on the entire plan, is the entire plan open for change, or because we've adopted this plan at
I
one
think
point,
the-
so is it just the assumptions?
I think to follow the
Cover the
states,
bases,
I would
open it
open
up
the
for
whole
the entire plan. Okay, so at this particular time, we will open up for public comment. We have 3 minutes to comment on this item for the Island Transit, proposed Island Transit 6-year Transit Development Plan 2015-2020. And I don't, well, Gail.
You almost got away with it, didn't you? My only thing, which I brought it up during the last time, was we talked a lot about paratransit in here and about doing it according to the law, federal law, and within the 3/4 miles. Between not being in the transportation plan as well as not in the budget listed, where do we list our out-of-bounds paratransit that we pick up, that the board verbally approved? I don't see a resolution approving that temporary policy of extending paratransit outside of bounds for an additional year. We're not listing anything in here about out of bounds paratransit.
Gail, could you repeat your question? We operate within 3/4 of a mile by law. And we also operate out of bounds based on some riders who have grandfathered in. And those are limited. And for new applicants for riding that, we don't go outside of the 3/4 mile.
Right, they have to come, the new ones have to come inbound. Now, when you talk about the grandfathered, are you talking ADA or are you talking HIPAA with church grandfathered plans? What grandfather are you referring to?
Well, I'm going to let the director choose his staff to answer that question. I think I know what the answer is, but I will let you guys carry that one
It involves the prior ADA recipients or users from years past who've utilized the service and currently require the service. Then, as you said, or as was mentioned, the service beyond 3/4 mile requirement is being discontinued. So it's just a matter of fulfilling past practice for those that are grandfathered under the policy.
The discontinuation was, I think, a board action.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
And it's recorded in the minutes.
Yes.
And it's going to be discontinued, I don't know, 6-7 months in the future.
June 2016.
Yeah.
And that action was taken, I believe, in May by the board.
My understanding was everyone who's using paratransit now is being re-reviewed to ensure that they met eligibility requirements.
Right.
And then individuals who are still eligible, who are receiving service out of that 3/4 mile, remain eligible for that year so that
Right.
they can come up with alternative transportation.
Right.
That's absolutely correct.
That's my
That was the action taken. And I think it involved like 5 individuals is what it came down to. She gave us a presentation on it, and rather than cut these people off, saying, oh, you cut off now, it gives them an opportunity to make arrangements to get to where they're within a 3/4 mile.
Right.
Does that answer your question, Gail?
Kind of.
Well, that's our answer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Please.
I have a question.
Could you identify yourself? for-
Shelley Brunke, I live in Freeland. When we were talking about the budget, we were talking about additional funds.
Excuse me, is your question related to the 6-year transportation plan?
No, it's not.
It has to be restricted to.
Okay, no, we already went.
We've gone
past-
by that one.
Oh, it's in here.
Sorry. Any other comments regarding the 6-year transportation plan? Hearing none. Matt, do we have to take an additional action on this?
I'd move that we
Close the hearing.
Close the hearing.
Okay, yeah. I take a motion to close the hearing.
No,
You can close it,
All right.
as chair.
Just ask
It's
3 times.
it's hereby closed.
Right.
Going once, going twice, closed. Closed 3 times, there we go. Thank you. Now we can take an action on that.
Yes, I move we approval of Island Transit 6-year transit development plan for years 2015 through 2020.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Hanold to approve the Island Transit 6-year transit development plan 2015-2020. It's seconded by Ms. Henderson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. And now we go on to the regular agenda. We have essentially done item number 1.
Yeah.
Amazing how fast we move when I talk.
We'll move on to number 2. In fact, I think we'll move on to number 3. Okay, we'll move on to agenda number 2, discussion and draft 1 of the 2016 annual budget and October 6, 2015 budget form. And you're going to do the presentation, or where are we with that? Who's going to do that presentation?
Well, I can begin a discussion. We're in the process of handing out our budget for 2016, and that's really where we are right now. We're also going to follow up with a budget forum for the public if they'd like to come and bring ideas, things they'd like to see, changes to the format and the way the budget is presented, just to make it more understandable. So that's a session that I'll be running in the evening on October 6th. And so we would encourage anyone who's interested in seeing changes from the public, who's interested in seeing changes to the readability, understandability, format of the budget, you're welcome to come, and we'll take the time to talk about that.
Gets on.
What time have you set?
I think it's going to be from 6 to 7:30 on October 6th. And of course, the budget we post online, so if anyone wants to take a look at that, just go out to islandtransit.org and you can find it there.
Is that date set in stone?
Well, we set it, but I don't think it's set in stone. No.
Well, because at that exact same time, we're having a public hearing at the Allen County Board of
Okay.
Commissioners. And I personally would like to sit in and hear what the public has to say about this.
I don't know, just the cautionary though, you can't have any more than 3 here.
Well, this is true too.
Or you can, but you need to know it.
Yeah, we have to, yeah, that's true too. Never mind, lay my lap.
And maybe we can record it and
Yeah.
and allow you to play it back.
I'm just always interested in what.
And I will not be able to attend that because we have a council meeting that night.
What day of the week is it?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I can do here.
There we go.
Okay.
We're well represented.
Good.
So who will be attending? Okay, Jackie.
I'm not sure. If needed, I think I could make it up here, but I've gone over these, both the format and the numbers pretty closely. I'm glad that Jackie can be there. And I think maybe I'll opt out unless there's
Okay.
I had to check with Debbie.
All right. So that's still a fluid schedule. We're going to stick with your schedule, and it's going to be between the board who's going to attend. It's just for sure I can't attend that night.
So I guess what I should re-say is that we're putting out the budget there for the public to review, for the board to review. And I guess our first public hearing about it will be next month. But I'd be sure to make a more formal presentation concerning the numbers and underlying assumptions.
Okay, I have a question regarding this draft. Under the operating revenues, you have passenger fares of $118,010. How did you arrive at that? What's the source?
Well, and I should also say that it has since changed since this version because I updated it for a couple of reasons, and it's slightly higher than that in my next iteration. But the way I arrived at it was we're looking at just 2 routes, 411 and 412, making the assumption that there would be a 30% drop in ridership and charging a $2 fare.
How many routes, how many runs did you assume for 412?
412 would be 4 runs. Or actually, no, I think I used the number of runs that were, I used past data, so it would have been, I think 9 runs is what we were running there before.
8 on 412.
And 412 was 8 runs.
8 round trips.
Yeah.
And I was using 13 Whidbey round trips and 9 Camino round trips on the 411.
Are those fares consistent with Skagit and
They are.
Okay, it pairs, because we're looking at that strategy to dovetail in with them, and this is on a cash basis. And also based on that, we have 8 fare boxes for sure.
9.
9 now. Is that going to meet your needs? Will 9 boxes meet your needs, or do you need to go to those other transit districts to get additional boxes?
It's going to be close, and we may need to get a few more from other transit agencies, but we won't have a problem meeting that requirement.
Okay, and then on the expense side, show me where, in this draft budget, where you have the cost of collecting those funds. Are you putting on any more people? Does it increase your wages and salaries number? How did you balance that out?
Well, I didn't put in specifically what it's going to cost since I don't know exactly. I mean, we're still working on that project, but in the projected 2015, I put an amount in there for fare box collection system with an anticipation that we would be spending that money in advance of collecting it. Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, it's on page 2.2, and it's under 2015 actual projected. I just put an amount in there, fare collection startup at $100,000. So that's on page 2.2. Under capital expenses,
I got you. I was looking on
2015
your summary
projected
page
actual.
for that.
Yeah.
But no ongoing costs associated with that.
Well, there will be, and I haven't determined that yet.
At this point, though, there are no additional employees budgeted. It'll be a matter of reassigning some duties, reassigning some, possibly some shift times, or maintaining the same staffing level at this point.
Can I?
The other, excuse me, Rick, the other part of that is that we have received an offer by Skagit Transit to help with administration costs for the fare system too, so that's going to offer us some cost savings as well. So I don't foresee a major impact as far as collection costs go relative to manpower. The only real cost we'll have we'll have up front is the armored car service. We'll have to pay a portion of that if Skagit handles that for us. But the employee manpower part of it will involve redistribution, reassignment of current employees.
Can I? Yeah, the only issue, because I went through this pretty thoroughly, I just have I realize that budgets are written on assumptions, and these assumptions are based on past trends. But I have concerns about the passenger fare being shown as revenue, and I also have concerns about the Ever Connector grant being shown as revenue, because those two monies are projected on a policy decision that has yet to be made by this board. Okay, so we have yet to see that we're going to get a consensus to allow for fare box implementation. I know you got my vote, so don't worry about it, but I can't speak for everybody else. But the other thing is, I think it would be better if we was to take those out of the budget and not make those assumptions. And then at such time, because we don't know, it may be June of next year before boxes can be installed, and that's going to change that. We don't have any, you know, I like to see you have $100,000 set aside for installation costs or administrative costs, et cetera, et cetera. But I think we need, you know, I mean, assumptions as far as sales taxes, there's trends that you can see, and you can make your assumptions on that. We know that we're getting the 1.15 million as far as the 411 route. And other things we got, these other things are like I say, my biggest concern is there are assumptions, financial assumptions being made on policy that has not been adopted yet.
Would you recommend taking the corresponding expenses out then as well?
Yep. Because it would give a truer picture. And then at such time that we say, okay, we're going to do this, and come, you know, June 1st, fares are starting, and this is the amount they're going to be, we make a budget amendment and add that stuff in. But I just don't like, I think it's awfully presumptuous of us to put numbers in there based on something that we don't know is going to be approved.
Make a suggestion on that too.
Yeah.
I personally like to see, this is a planning document.
Right.
This is a draft. And I would be comfortable leaving it in there with an asterisk and a footnote about what that relates to.
Yeah, something that calls it out, so at a minimum that it's called out or something, so that there is, that it is, because granted, we're looking at this as a working document and everything else, but again, you got to remember, the public is looking at this, and the public may not be sitting in this room at this time and getting all those nuances.
I think the